James Pasternak, welcome to the Honest Report podcast.
Happy to be here.
Now, back in December, after the Bondi Beach killings in Australia, you, alongside another councillor, Mike Colle, asked for the RCMP, the Ontario Provincial Police, as well as the Toronto Police, to create a task force to address acts of violent anti-Semitism. Tell us what mandate you would envision this task force to have.
Well, the key to really getting on top of this whole phenomenon of the violence, the hate, the mobs, the shootings, the fire bombings, the destabilization of the city was to move in really early, arrest the ringleaders, put them on very strict bail conditions, and then let the criminal justice system do its work. The problem was there was a philosophy among the law enforcement elites and the political elites to really think that this was a let's let it blow over type of approach. Well, it's escalated and it's gotten worse. And a municipal force does not have the resources or manpower, technologies, or foreign tools to really disrupt and end the mayhem that has gripped our city.
Now, you mentioned that some officials are still saying that, or at least thinking in your mind, that this is going to blow over. 2.5 years ago, I can understand, but are you still hearing that kind of mentality now?
Yeah, I mean, what you've got here is likely a heavily funded from foreign sources, groups of people who are here to mostly destabilize the city. They probably could care less about the Palestinians. They are there. They are here to harass and intimidate the Jewish community. They are here to destabilize much of the city infrastructure. They have tried to intimidate subway riders. They have gone on the CN rail tracks. They have stormed Union Station. They have also firebombed a Jewish-owned grocery store and shot up a number of synagogues. So you can see the mayhem spreading, everything from critical infrastructure to stores and businesses and a place of worship of the Jewish community. So you need all three levels of government to come to the table and combine their resources to get on top of this. Much of the legislative powers to stop foreign funding and to really come down on potentially foreign actors who are operating here is under federal jurisdiction and under the Anti-Terrorism Act. And the only way we can cut off the foreign funding is with a partnership with the RCMP and the federal government. And we believe that much of this is foreign funded. At the same time, Toronto's police force, people have to understand, maybe you got 5,400 officers. This is a very small force for a city of 3 million. To give you a comparison, Chicago has the same population, but has 11,000 officers. Now, it's true, Chicago has a different crime dynamic with a lot of murders, 400 last year, and a lot of violence that we don't have. But at the same time, our force is spread way too thin, and it does not have anywhere near the resources to deal with these organized, funded mobs that have taken over our city.
Now, for the last 2.5 years, we've seen a lot of finger pointing with every level pointing to someone else, different levels of government blaming each other for this inaction. Beyond federal action, is there a gap in provincial or municipal legislation that can be addressed? Bubble legislation, for example, was passed in a number of cities, but that didn't stop a lot of these protests. And there's a lot of heavy police presence, in places like Bath or Shepherd, where there's still an anti-Israel protest every week. So is there an issue, a lack of enforcement?
Well, it's my view that the laws on the books now, either provincial, federal, or bylaws at the municipal level, are sufficient to bring this to an end. Sure, laws always have to be reviewed, and they always have to be updated and fine-tuned. But what's on the books now are sufficient. There is chronic finger-pointing and behind-the-scenes blame on the other levels of government for not acting, for not doing their job. And quite frankly, I've heard it so many times. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. we need political leadership that will speak in a unified voice against this mayhem. We need all police forces, federal, provincial, municipal, to come together and figure out the best way to cut off the funding to arrest. And of course, we need the Ministry of the Attorney General to pursue the charges and stop dropping the charges.
Now, I want to ask about the severity of the charges being laid. I know that's largely a provincial matter, but in your perspective, in the recent Toronto pellet gun or Orby gun attacks, bail was reportedly set at only $2,000. A lot of critics would say that there's a pattern of light bail conditions, charges, etc. If the legislation is already sufficient, as you said, does the punishment calculus need to be recalibrated?
Well, absolutely. The bail reform is something that all provinces across this country and the federal government agree on. It is just a bit of a joke that people who commit very serious crimes are out the next day for a very small bond. This creates a farce of our judicial system, and that's when the rule of law starts breaking down. When there's minimum charges, when we do charge and then the charges are dropped, the rule of law breaks down. So this will continue endlessly unless there are consequences in law enforcement and in the judicial system, with minimum sentencing, tough bail conditions, strict bail conditions, and of course cutting off foreign actors and foreign funding. You talk about Bathurst and Shepherd. I mean, this is a group that comes up every Sunday afternoon to harass the Jewish community. I've been there many times. Their chants are hateful. They are calling for the destruction of Israel. They're calling for the genocide of Jews. They've made a wide range of hateful and threatening comments and speeches. This would never be allowed in any other minority neighborhood. It would be shut down. It would have been shut down a year and a half ago.
Now, to what would you attribute this apparent reticence on the part of the RCMP?
Well, I mean, it's a broken judiciary, it's timid policing, and it's spineless leadership. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. But, it seems to me that many people argue that these protesters have charter rights. But what about our rights? What about our rights to go about our daily lives in peace, in security, without intimidation and harassment and incitement? Don't we have rights as well to go to the Shepherd Plaza and shop and go to the stores, to walk down the sidewalk without hateful chants, to go into the local bank without having to traverse an angry mob? What about our rights? That's what's been forgotten in this whole debate.
Is there an impression that this is not an important issue because no one has been seriously hurt or killed?
Well, they all agree, but then they don't do anything. Bail reform has and it's not easy to get unanimity among the provinces and all levels of government. Bail reform is crucial in this country. But you've also got to remember there's a political dynamic here. And you've got too many politicians scraping the barrel for a few extra votes. And they're worried that if they come down too hard, they're going to come under scrutiny. They're going to be blamed for hurting the rights of the protesters, or damaging their freedom of speech, that kind of thing. So there's a political dynamic where the political will in many cases is not there to deal with this because they're scraping the barrel for a few extra votes, and that we wait. We are very anxious to get bail reform done. But this is the task force. The whole idea of a task force would be intergovernmental, all three levels of government, and making sure that current laws work, that there's a strong judicial response to police arrests. I mean, police are enormously frustrated when they make arrests, and then the charges are dropped quite quickly. So they are very frustrated, but the federal government doesn't seem to be interested in any of this. We need them to come to the table because we need the power of federal legislation, and we need the intelligence, surveillance, and resources of the RCMP. And unless they come to the table, this will be an endless cycle of violence in our city.
Now, what is the RCMP itself telling you? Is the response just quite literally silence? We'll get back to you, or we don't think this is important? I mean, what are you hearing?
Well, it has to go from police force to police force. They're not going to call me up and ask me my opinion. So they see this as a Toronto problem, that it's a municipal problem, and that you'll be able to solve it over time. I think there is too much reliance on this ideology that it'll burn itself out and that it'll all go away. And we want that, actually. We wish it went away a year ago or 2 years ago. But you cannot wait for this kind of criminal activity and ongoing protests to peter out. You have to enforce the law now. If there's a murder spree, you don't wait for the murder spree to burn itself out. You enforce the law on a real-time basis. This has created enormous damage to our city. There's a perception that we're no longer a safe city, that we no longer are safe for minority groups, that the Jewish community is under siege, and that basically we've been abandoned for what? A conflict zone that's 10,000 kilometers away? What does coming up to Bathurst and Shepherd and harassing the local Jewish community have to do with the war in the Middle East? Why are they up there? There's no embassies, there's no consulates, there's no government buildings, there's no public squares. They're there to harass the Jewish community, and they should be removed.
Now, back in March, as you know, the City of Toronto announced a new counterterrorism task force. It seems, at least anecdotally, that there's been a very significant improvement in the pace of arrests. I don't know if that's an accurate assessment. I'm curious for your thoughts and whether you share that view as well.
Yeah, so look, Toronto police are doing the best they can. And I speak to the frontline officers and thank them very much for being there, whether they're at our synagogue, whether they're on the street. I really appreciate the work of our police services. Has it been too much of a de-escalation approach over the last couple of years? Yes. Have they been reluctant to lay charges when crimes are committed right in front of them? Yes, there's been that too. But you are correct. We have noticed, and I'm only speaking anecdotally, that they're more willing to arrest people. They're able to catch some of the perpetrators of these crimes quite quickly because of proactive patrols in Jewish neighborhoods and watching very closely potential target sites. So yes, it is encouraging that these arrests are being made, that the rule of law is being supported, and we just hope these charges are not dropped, and that the Crown attorneys pursue these charges to the fullest extent of the law, and that if there's any kind of probation or whatever, that very strict conditions be put on it, because right now only aggressive law enforcement and tough sentencing is going to bring this to an end.
James Pasternak, thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome. Take care. All the best.